Subscribe for more Midnight Truths. And don't listen alone.
I never used to stay late on campus. I liked keeping my evenings free, gym, gaming, or just zoning out with music. But that semester was brutal. I was behind on everything: papers, readings, and group work with people who barely answered texts. So one Friday, when the building was already emptying by sunset, I made the decision to stay. I grabbed a seat in one of the small study rooms on the fourth floor of the main academic hall, the one with those huge, outdated windows and buzzing ceiling lights that never quite worked right. I figured a few hours of silence would do me good. And for the first hour, it did. I was finally focused. No distractions, no noise. Just the faint hum of electricity and my notes spread out like a crime scene in front of me. But around 8:30 p.m., I noticed something weird. The hallway outside had gone pitch black. Not dim. I mean completely dark, like the lights had just died. I didn't hear anyone turn them off. No janitors. No footsteps. No hum of a vacuum or squeaky wheels of a cleaning cart. Just silence. I got up to check. The motion lights didn't come on. I waved my hand, nothing. The weird part? The exit sign was still glowing faint red at the end of the corridor. Meaning power hadn't been cut. Something had just selectively turned off the lights. I told myself not to overthink it. Maybe maintenance scheduled something. Maybe I missed an email. I sat back down and kept studying. But the atmosphere had shifted. I kept looking up from my notes, expecting to see someone walk by. No one did. Then I started hearing soft, mechanical whirring, like a motor starting up and then stopping. I leaned toward the door and realized it was coming from above me. There was a security camera in the hallway. It was rotating, slowly, like it was tracking movement. Except, there was no one else around. That was the moment I considered leaving. But I was tired of being the guy who flinched at nothing. I brushed it off and stayed another hour. Around 9:45, I finally packed up. The hallway was still blacked out, but now the silence felt heavier, like the whole building was holding its breath. I took the stairs. The elevator always felt sketchy at night. But when I reached the ground floor, I noticed something that stopped me cold. A light was on behind the reception desk. A single screen was glowing, displaying a black and white feed of the building's hallways. I could see the fourth floor on that screen. I could see the hallway I had just walked through. And on that feed, there was someone standing outside the room I'd been in. Just standing, perfectly still. And then the screen blinked to black. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen, staring at that black screen. My mind was racing, trying to come up with a reasonable explanation for what I saw. Maybe the feed was old. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe it was just me, distorted by low resolution and bad lighting. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. That figure was tall, taller than me, broader, and I had been alone the entire time. I moved toward the desk, hoping to get the screen back on. Maybe the feed would loop or reset. But before I could even step behind the counter, the screen blinked again, just once, and powered down completely. Everything went black. I didn't wait. I headed straight for the front entrance. It was locked. That alone wasn't strange. Some buildings on campus locked up after 10 p.m. But this one, I'd left through that exact door a dozen times late at night before. It had never been locked. I checked my phone. No service. No Wi-Fi. Then I heard it again. The same low mechanical sound I'd heard upstairs. The soft clicking of a camera rotating, echoing down the empty hallway like it was following me now. I didn't want to go back upstairs, but I had no choice. The only other exit was on the second floor, past the Student Media Center. I took the stairs two at a time, trying to convince myself this was just a malfunction. Some kind of security system update. But when I reached the second floor, I noticed something that stopped me cold again. The building layout was wrong. The corridor was longer than I remembered. Doors that should have been there weren't. One hallway ended in a wall that didn't exist during the day. And the light fixtures weren't flickering anymore. They were glowing steadily, but in a way that felt artificial. Too even. Too perfect. It was like someone had recreated the second floor, but got the details slightly off. Then I saw the elevator. The doors were open, inviting. I'd avoided it before, but now something told me to get in. Maybe I could just press the lobby button and get out the main doors from there. Inside, there were no floor numbers, just a blank panel with a glowing button. One single button. No markings, no symbols, just a perfect, round, glowing white circle. Against all instinct, I pressed it, and the elevator began to descend. I was going underground. I didn't even know the building had a basement. But the elevator kept moving far too long for just one floor. 15 seconds. 20. 30. Then it stopped. The doors opened to a hallway I had never seen before. No windows. No natural light. Just a long, narrow corridor with walls that looked like freshly poured concrete. The air was colder here, and completely still. I took a few hesitant steps forward, and then I saw something that made my skin crawl. On the wall ahead of me was a whiteboard. On it, written in perfect black marker, were two words, Subject 11, and beneath it, a blurry photo of me. For a moment, I just stood there, frozen in front of that whiteboard. My photo, not a selfie, not a student ID, but a grainy image of me from behind, taken recently. I recognized the hoodie I was wearing last week. The angle looked like it had been captured through a security feed. Or maybe something else. The words, Subject 11, were printed above it. The number bothered me. It implied there were others. 10 before me, maybe more after. I turned around, half expecting someone to be standing behind me. But the corridor was still empty, still silent. I kept walking. I didn't want to, but I also didn't want to turn back toward the elevator that brought me here. Something told me it wouldn't be there anymore. The hallway twisted. The more I walked, the less it looked like a university building. The walls became smoother, seamless, like molded plastic. The air smelled sterile, like a hospital or a laboratory. Eventually, I reached a door. No handle, just a panel on the wall. As I approached, it clicked. The door slid open. Inside was a room that made every hair on my body stand up. It looked like a classroom, at least at first glance. But everything was off. There were chairs, yes, but bolted to the floor. Desks, but with leather straps on either side. A whiteboard, but filled with lines of handwritten notes that made no sense. Formulas, words scratched out violently. A few phrases that repeated again and again. Mirror doesn't lie. Conscious split equals failure. No interaction after phase 3. In the corner of the room sat a monitor. Powered on by itself. Footage began to play. It showed a man sitting in one of the desks. His face was blurred, or maybe the recording was just corrupted. He twitched, like he was in pain. Then he started convulsing. Suddenly, a dark shape, human-like but wrong, stepped into the frame. The man stopped moving. The screen glitched, then cut to black. Couldn't breathe. I turned to leave and stopped in my tracks. The doorway I entered through was gone. Just a smooth wall behind me. No seams, no outline. Like it had never existed. That's when I realized this wasn't just some hidden level of the university. This wasn't about a security system glitch or a power outage. This wasn't even about me staying late. This was planned. Designed. Like I was being funneled. I looked back at the desk with straps. It was identical to the one in the video. And then I heard it. Faint, mechanical, the same whirring motor sound from the hallway. A camera in the ceiling above me just rotated. And then, from the corner of the room, a second door began to open. The second door slid open slowly. I didn't want to know what was behind it, but standing still didn't feel like an option anymore. Beyond it was a hallway, darker than the last, lit only by thin red lights along the ceiling. Felt underground, not just physically but emotionally. Place not meant to be found. The corridor twisted and dipped until I reached a wider space. A glass observation room. On the other side of the glass was a large, empty chamber. Except it wasn't empty. Inside stood a man. Or at least something that looked like one. It faced the far wall, unmoving. His arms hung too low. The way it stood was unnatural. like it was imitating how humans hold themselves, but missing some key part. The glass between us began to fog up as the temperature dropped. A monitor on the wall beside me flickered to life. This time, no video, just text. Phase 4, mirror test. Subject 11 active. The lights in the chamber turned on. The figure turned. It had my face. Not like a twin. Not even like a clone. It was my face, but wrong. Expressionless. Its mouth opened slightly, and it tilted its head. Then it began walking toward the glass. I stumbled back, slamming into the control panel. My palm hit something, a red switch. Alarms blared. The chamber door opened. The thing, the version of me, stepped out, not into the hallway, but into darkness behind the room. I ran. I don't remember which direction. The halls shifted behind me, lights flickering, sirens echoing. I saw glimpses of rooms filled with equipment, recordings, charts with lines connected by string like someone had been tracking behavior. I passed another whiteboard. This one said, Phase 5, contain or assimilate. I didn't stop to think what that meant. I just ran. Eventually, by some miracle or design, I found the elevator again. It was already open. I jumped in, slammed the panel. No button. But it began to rise. The ride was shorter this time. When the doors opened, I was back on the first floor. It was morning. Sunlight poured through the front windows. My phone buzzed back to life. 8:02 a.m. The main door was unlocked. I walked out into the courtyard. Students passed me like nothing was wrong, like everything was normal, like the university hadn't just tried to dissect me. I never told anyone. Couldn't. Who would believe it? I checked online. The building didn't have a basement. The blueprints ended at the second floor. No security footage from that night. My ID swipe history was blank. But for days I kept seeing myself. Out of the corner of my eye. In mirrors. On screens. Not reflections. Not hallucinations. Something else. Sometimes I wonder if I ever made it out. Or if I'm still in that chamber. Strapped down, eyes wide open. Watching something where my face. Because the truth is, since that night, I haven't felt quite like me.